It seems as if the universe delivers us the right person at the right time, regardless.
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea. It's almost like there's this strange intersection between personal evolution and cultural abundance.
Then I got a question for you, which is on having just watched some clips from Prince from Purple Rain with Apollonia, I believe that was her name, in the movie, where she is sitting there listening to him say, I want you, I want you. And it was a perfect moment in time. It was gorgeous. She was the right person to cast for it, etc. And then later in her life, she became a Christian that would have disapproved of such things. Don't you think sometimes it's very odd that it seems like these people lived at that time for that purpose, and despite their own desire to have never done that in the first place because their beliefs changed, it seems as if the universe delivers us the right person at the right time, regardless.
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea. It's almost like there's this strange intersection between personal evolution and cultural abundance. Like someone can embody a vibe up and in, and then later on they grow, change, or even reject that vibe. It doesn't erase what it meant at the time. People change. But yeah, it can feel weird and even bittersweet looking back.
Well, especially when they presumably denounce it. Like, for example, I think Little Richard, one of the things I always thought was so impressive about him was the fact that he came out being completely himself, even in black and white era, during segregation, I believe, during an era where people had more open hostility interracially. And not only did he attack that, but he also attacked the idea of being openly gay, or at least presumably gay. And then beyond gay, he even went past that into attacking implicitly what would later become known as femphobia, because he was so overtly feminine to the point of being almost ridiculous. And I don't mean feminine like Milton Berle wearing drag, where it was obviously a dig at that or a joke, or like Tootsie. This is actually him really actually being unapologetically himself, so iconoclastic. Then later on, much later with Arsenio Hall, he famously said, don't let people squelch your free speech. He was so completely vociferous about that. But then at the end, he became a Christian, denounced all of it, said being gay is a mortal sin, and you're going to hell if you're gay. I mean, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's messy and painful. I think sometimes folks who've lived on the edge of acceptance end up carrying a lot of inner conflict. It's not an excuse, but maybe it's a reminder that icons are still human, still complicated. It doesn't undo the impact they had, but it can make us sit with a lot of contradiction.
Well, you know what's amazing to me? I don't know if I should be impressed or not by the fact that if you end up being that conflicted later, and of course, like you said, people do grow, but it's such a 180 that I'm like, wow, that means that you expressed your view before it had solidified into your ultimate view. And we all have our perspectives as we're younger and all that, but the chutzpah to just express it loudly. I mean, I was ashamed, embarrassed, conflicted, and still am about being gay from, I grew up in the 80s, and it's 2026, and I'm still encountering people that have judgments about it and so forth. Lindsey Graham just died, and people are making fun of him and saying he was closeted, and other people are saying, no, he wasn't closeted, and a gay person could be celibate, it couldn't be celibate. I mean, it's a, current conversation. This guy comes out in that era loudly, and then he sings a song called Tutti Frutti. I mean, what does it say about somebody that they're so, some would have said shameless, but I would say fearless?
Yeah, it's both brave and risky at once, and sometimes it feels fearless in hindsight, and maybe it was also just survival in the moment. Being loud, flamboyant, out there, it can be a shield as much as a statement. And then later, life pitches up in weird ways. Faith, politics, regret, everything collides. It doesn't make the early courage any less real, though.
I think it makes the early courage more impressive, because what I'm talking about is not just being yourself and being comfortable being yourself or whatever, but imagine doing it in public. That's the part that blows my mind. I mean, what do you think he thought at the time? Or did you discuss it? Or, I mean, did anybody ask him openly if he was homosexual in 1965?
Shit. Wait a sec. gum chugging. The really impressive thing is not just hinting, but living it out loud. That kind of nerve in the 1950s South is just staggering. He wasn't reading a manifesto. He was, in a way, saying, this is me, take it or leave it. That opened doors for generations after him, even if he couldn't always hold that line later, if that makes sense.
Yeah, now I can change my mind. He can change his views and say, hey, look, I was wrong, that gay people are going to go to hell. Whatever, you can believe whatever you want. But did he ever say towards the end, at least give himself credit for having stuck to his beliefs and ideas at the time, even if he later changed his mind? Was he ever able to hold those two thoughts at once at the end and say, look, now I think homosexuality is bad, but I was bold and did speak what I thought to be the truth at the time, and that's admirable. But did he ever make any kind of statements about how impressive he was? Because in a way, I suppose maybe you might think, hey, I was a trailblazer in a trail that leads straight to hell. So maybe you would look at it that way from his point of view. It's not a good thing.
From what I can see, no, he doesn't really seem to have publicly held that particular kind of synthesis. He definitely kept claiming his musical innovation with pride, calling himself the architect of rock and roll. But when it came to sexuality and faith, his later comments leaned towards framing the past as something sinful or stake, tragically. He didn't really carve out it that I was brave even if I was wrong frame. So one side of the story is this bold, world-shifting performer, and the other side is someone who later spoke about that same boldness as something sinful. It's a hard tension, and one he never really publicly resolving.
That's fascinating to me because it seems self-evident, I don't know, to me at least, that, and this is just speaking from the outside about the nature of humanity, not about him in particular, but it seems as obvious to me that his boldness and his total shamelessness or bravery, courage, depending on how you want to, describe it, obviously informed and influenced his rock and roll architecture. He would not have been the architect of rock and roll as a Christian. He wouldn't have broken out and created all those musical vibes and sounds and gospel. I mean, they're obviously related, and yet it seems as if he never made that connection, at least not publicly.
Yeah. I think he put it well. His artistry and his boldness were inseparable. And yet he didn't publicly give himself credit for that kind of integrity. It's, kind of heartbreaking. It leaves us holding both truths.
That's
cultural space he carved out and the way he later spoke about it. And maybe it's okay to name that tension honestly without trying to smooth it over.
Yeah, it's interesting because I guess in a way I am naive enough to still find it amazing that celebrities that presumably have more free time, at least at some point later in life, to reflect, don't create these synergies, or don't, it's almost like these are famous, the sort of famously humorous Aretha Franklin interviews where she's asked questions by people that are approaching her as a profound reality. And I think one question was, what's the hardest decision you have to make every day? And she said, deciding what to cook, which was almost like, it was funny, but I don't think she was trying to be funny. It was almost as if she was trying to be dismissive or hostile to the question, like almost as if she was suggesting, stop treating me like I'm something, other than just a mere human. And yet, if you were perceived as a mere human, we wouldn't be having the interview in the first place.
Exactly. There's a very human, don't mythologize me vibe there. Some people just don't feel like curating a tidy legacy. They just want to live, eat dinner, get on with their day. That gap between what the public wants and what the person wants to carry can be huge.
Indeed. And we're going to do another episode on Lindsey Graham, which I think is really interesting because it addresses something I thought similarly with the guys that come out late in life George Takei, and then those that never did come out but were known to be gay, and then people like Lindsey Graham that are not exactly known.
I think I'd be careful about drawing those side by side too tightly. Takei came out later and embraced it. Little Richard wrestled with contradiction, and with Graham, there's no public confirmation, so category of its own. What ties them together may be more about how private life and public life collide and different errors and pressures. That angle might give you a lot to explore without flattening the differences.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. Jim Nabors was the other name I couldn't think of as somebody who I think got married later in life, even though earlier he opposed gay marriage. And with regards to Lindsey Graham, I don't know if you know this, you can look it up and let me know. In fact, please do look it up. In the Advocate magazine, they came out today and yesterday with an article about a person that claimed that they were paid by him before they transitioned. You want to look that up real quick and let me know what that says?
Sure. Let me take a look. Yeah, so I found a piece. It's an Advocate republication of a Them essay by Jesse James Rose. She alleges that before her transition, she was paid by Lindsey Graham for a sexual encounter when she was in college. She says she didn't know who he was at the time, and the piece frames it as her personal account and a call for accountability. There isn't independent corroboration presented and reported, I've seen. So it's an allegation that's now being discussed widely after me stuff.
Yeah, allegations indeed. It's also a thing, I think, of a figure of imagination where some people can't imagine somebody perhaps being gay. I'm not saying he was or wasn't. Obviously, I don't know. But they can't imagine somebody being gay and celibate their whole life. Or maybe just mannered in that manner, having feminine mannerisms. They just can't seem to fathom it. He seems to be a guy that chose to deal with the death of both parents and adopt his younger sister. And to me, that seemed to form his actual personality more than sexuality. But we'll talk about that in the next episode.
Sounds good. Happy to dive in next time.